Hello everybody, my name is Kara and today I'm here with my June wrap-up. So I kind of participated in the Reading Women Challenge Month, which had a bunch of wonderful challenges about reading female-centered books and books by female authors, primarily books by female authors, and I did not read very many of the ones I was hoping to. You guys have already heard about how I got sick and life and all of that, so I won't get into it. Also, if the books did count for a particular challenge, I will be sure to note that down below in case you guys are curious. So first I finished Instead of Three Wishes, Magical Short Stories by Megan Whalen Turner. Megan Whalen Turner is the author of the Queen's Thief series, which I am loving. I'm only 2 books in and I just adore those books, so I was really excited to read some of her other fiction. And like with most short story collections, this was a very mixed bag for me. Just a quick rundown of the ratings I gave for each story. Plague of Leprechaun I gave 3.5 stars, Leroy Roachbane I gave 4 stars, Factory I gave 3 stars, and that story also has a trigger warning for suicide. Aunt Charlotte and the NGA Portraits I gave 5 stars. Instead of Three Wishes I gave 4.5 stars. The Nightmare I gave 2 stars. That was by far my least favorite story. I really don't recommend that one. It was super freaky and just not what I'm into. And The Baker King I gave 4 stars. So I would recommend this collection. All of them were pretty quick and easy to get through, and the gems that I did find I think made the whole collection worth it. I think overall I gave the short story collection 3.5 stars. I didn't love Megan Whalen Turner's writing style quite as much as in her Queen's Thief series, but I did like how creative the story ideas were. I like how good she was at crafting characters in such a short space of time. By far my favorite stories were Aunt Charlotte and the NGA Portraits and Instead of Three Wishes. I think those were both so magical and whimsical and with just a little bit of bittersweetness but not too much, and if you're only going to read a couple stories from the collection, obviously I would recommend my favorites, but I just think those were really good. Next I finished Nandel by Maria Turchaninov. This is the sequel to Marisi, which is the first book in the Red Abbey Chronicles series. This is the second book, but it is actually a prequel. This was such a brilliantly written book. It was very intense and upsetting for quite a bit of it actually, but I think it was so well done, so important, so engaging. So when I talked about Marisi, I mentioned that one of the things I loved about it is that it wasn't immediately obvious what the age range was for that book. I think people who are really put off by certain age ranges, like middle grade or YA or whatever, I think anybody could enjoy that book, Marisi. But for this one, I definitely would say that's not true. I would classify this book as an adult novel, maybe borderline YA into adult. But it's so dark. I would give trigger warnings for rape, for suicide, for self-harm, for miscarriages, for abuse. There's a lot of disturbing content in this book. And even though it was very prevalent throughout the story, I wouldn't say that it was gratuitous or that it was used for no good reason. I think the author made a very conscious decision about what living in a world like this would be like. You know, she really wanted to tell that story and she didn't shy away from showing how awful it was. And this book, the plot really follows the founding of the organization that we see in Marisi. So there's this sanctuary for women and girls who are fleeing hardship, basically, especially that inflicted by men. And this book shows us why the women left the country that they were from and why that sanctuary was necessary. I'm not going to say I enjoyed reading all of it because obviously there were some scenes that were just awful to read, but I think that this was a phenomenal book. I ended up giving it 4.5 stars. I think the author did such an amazing job of showing beauty and hope and friendship in the midst of all of this suffering. I think it's incredible how quickly and distinctly I was able to bond with all of the perspective characters, because I think we end up with, is it 7 or 8 different narrators, but I never felt like that was too much. I felt like I got to know all of these women. I feel like even the times when I didn't agree with the decision they were making, I could understand why they did it. All of these women were doing the best they can, or what they thought the best they could do was, and just seeing them bond and finally start to work together and escape this horrible situation was just beautiful. I also loved the world building and the writing and all of the different cultures and backgrounds of these women and how you could see the way they interconnected, and it was so cool and interesting to me to see the different cultures and the different beliefs and how those differed, but how they weren't mutually exclusive. I think the fact that I enjoyed this book or thought so highly of it, even though it was a prequel, which I almost never like, I think that really speaks to this series' quality as well. If you can read it safely, keeping in mind the trigger and content warnings, I think it's so worth it. This is just such a phenomenal series, and I am so ready for the third book. Next, I finished Deathless by Catherine M. Valente. This is a retelling of the Koshi the Deathless story, but there is also a lot of other Russian folklore and stories mixed into this book as well. And it also incorporates a lot of Russian history, mainly the Russian Revolution, and this was such an interesting book. I ended up really enjoying it, but it's a really strange one. It's the kind of book where I really don't know how to recommend it to people or who to recommend it to, except that if you tend to like dark and odd and just weird and creative fantasy books, I think you would enjoy this. Catherine M. Valente's writing is just incredible. It's almost to the point of showing off sometimes, but I mean that in the best way possible. Every line, every paragraph was just so well constructed, but not in a way that felt unnatural or anything. I just really, really clicked with her writing style, and something I really appreciated and enjoyed about this book is the cast of characters is so unlikable in a lot of ways. Many of the characters are ones where you're not sure if you should actually want them to win or not. You know, you don't know if you want to root for them. But even the ones that I didn't like, or that I had a lot of problems with, almost every single character I still enjoyed seeing. Like, I still understood them. The romantic relationship in this book is definitely a twisty one, pretty messed up, pretty unhealthy in a lot of ways. I don't know if I would necessarily call it abusive because it doesn't feel as unbalanced as those relationships will generally do. So I don't even know how to give a content warning for this, except that there's a lot of war and starvation on top of that. But as far as the relationship goes, I just don't know how to describe it or how to, like, best prepare people for it, because Koshi the character is just such a fantastic anti-hero, or even not really a villain, anti-protagonist. I don't even know what he is, but even though he does so many awful things, there's a part of you that wants to see more, you know, that like still wants to follow him and wants him to succeed, and like you're invested in him. I guess that's what I'm trying to say with all of this rambling discussion about characters, is I was invested in this story and these characters and this world. And also I want to point out that she did a ton of research on this book before she wrote it. I have seen reviews from Russian readers who have basically said that her research and her portrayal is flawless and just such a good representation of these stories and the culture. Also, this is a very small side note, but she actually used the correct Russian naming systems. And I'm sorry, I'm like throwing shade at the Grisha trilogy right now, but every time I would read Alina Starkov, I would get so pissed off. Like, I am not very well versed in Russian history. I really enjoy learning about Imperial Russia and mythology I'm really interested in, but I don't know that much. But I do know that you would never, ever, ever have a female character whose name ends in a consonant. You just wouldn't. That's not how it works, and this book didn't do that. So anyway, I gave this 4 stars. It's really strange. I'm really glad I read it. I don't know how I feel about some of it. And the last book I read during the month of June was Jessica's Guide to Dating on the Dark Side by Beth Van Taske. This was actually a reread. I read it for the BookTube Rereadathon Challenge to reread a guilty pleasure book. And paranormal romance is often considered a guilty pleasure genre, even though, like, I don't believe in shaming people for liking things that don't hurt people, basically. So anyway, I picked this one. First time I read it, I gave it 4 stars. This time I gave it 2 stars. So I have a lot of thoughts. I'm actually going to do a full review and discussion on my thoughts for this book, so I will talk a lot more about the specific things I didn't like in this book and the like 1 or 2 things I did, so definitely keep an eye out for that. I will link my Tome Topple TBR down below because I also do a currently reading update where I talk about the 5 books that I was reading at the time. Please let me know if you guys have read any of these books, what you thought of them. I will see you guys soon with another video, and I hope you love the next book you read. Bye!